All right, hi everyone. Welcome to the Week 2 recap and Week 3 preview for the Kent Akron Fall League 2022. We have here today guest again returning, Mark Amabile. Thank you so much for joining, Mark.
Thanks, glad to be here.
And we have Scott from the Green Team on as another guest. Thanks for joining, Scott.
I'm a big cilantro head. Happy to join you.
So as you can see, the standings after week 2 are in. Green did not update their score. We played purple, and we did pick up the win. So we'll go ahead and start with that review, Mark. If you remember what we talked about purple team last week, and you giving them, that you saying that they can get it together, and if they work together, they can to rally. I was going into this game expecting a little bit easier, and they put up such a tough fight. And at one point, it was 12-11, and then we scored to make it to 13-11. But it was almost, we never had more than a 2-point lead. Most of the time, it was like a 1-1. I think we finished halftime 8-6. But then we got the pool, but then they tied it like 9-9 or something like that.
I do think we were up like 6-2 or 7-3 at one point in the first half, though.
And then they evened it out pretty quickly, though.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they started doing some stuff differently, and they were able to capitalize on mistakes for sure.
Let me pull up their roster real quick. So we have to give a big shout out to Benji. Benji was putting the team on his back, and he was poaching everything, causing huge problems. We couldn't really throw anything floaty deep at all. He would get there no matter where he was on the field. He was poaching the underlanes, especially towards the end of the game.
Were they running a backhand force at one point? Because
Yeah.
I felt like a lot of the time that like we were screwing up, or we just kept turning it over because we weren't compensating for the force that we're not used to playing.
Eric loves to run backhand force, so he will run backhand force, and he was running backhand force at some points in the game.
I think that was the big difference maker that let them come back at those couple points, to be honest.
And then I also have to shout out, they had like a young cross-country player who was really good. He was really fast, and he was a deep threat, and he was making good plays on defense. I don't remember who he is. And they had another taller person who was matching up with Scott a lot, and Scott had some good blocks on him. But yeah, overall it was pretty good. So Mark, I think we got to 13-11 at one point, and the game ended on them turning it over by dropping 2 consecutive pools for us to win.
Ouch.
So yeah, it really took the momentum out. It was really anticlimactic for what really was a really good back-to-back game.
Yeah, I was getting really hyped for it to come down to the wire, and then the game just kind of ended. Like, I was ready to put my body on the line in those last couple points and just kind of wrapped up, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were on track for everything, but that did put us at 2-0 with a plus 6 point differential. If I remember the score correctly, it might have been 15-12.
I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion we did this week 1, and I have a sneaking suspicion we did this week 2. We may have ended up giving them a point.
We did, but then we took it back on the sideline in our discussions. So
we did. Okay, so 15-12 was correct.
At one point, we had 13-11, and then we changed it back, or 13-12, and then we changed it back to 13-11. So I don't think that we are 2-0 or the second best team. I think that we're fighting for the 3rd spot. But right now we are undefeated on the season. But as we look at week 3 predictions, that could change. So hold that thought. Let's go to red team. So red team played.
Hello.
Who did they play last week?
It looks like they played Yellow. Wednesday, September 14th.
But last week was August.
Oh shoot, you're right.
Played games. They played Blue.
Blue. Got
They
it.
played Blue and they won 15-10. So if you need a reminder, Mark, red team is the Gabe, Kevin, Dan team, and then they also have the Mitchells, Rachel Graber, Sammy Burke, this tall athletic guy, Charles Bontrager, who's you should know him, but he's a good handler. Dan, Jim picked Dan, and then this is a younger, newer player, but still smart. And they played Blue, and let me remind you of who Blue was, Mark and Scott. Blue was the Gary, Eli, Phil, Tim Weeks team, Christina.
Gotcha.
So solid team. And so I did talk with Tim a little bit about it, and it seemed like they just didn't have enough people to match up with the height and the depth of Red's height and speed. So Red was just able to outrun them, and especially when Blue's top end players went out for rest, Red would score easily, and then Blue would have a hard time responding, was what I was understanding.
Okay.
I think at one point towards the end, it might have been tied 9-9 or some, and then Red just kept the gas on it and won. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of coming into it, looking at the roster, it definitely seemed like Red and Black would be fighting for 1 and 2, and everyone else would be kind of in a race for third. So I'm not exactly surprised by that result. Although the fact that they had it tied until relatively late in the game, gives me some hope for the rest of us.
Yeah, and Blue's not a bad. Blue's a very good team. Like, we're going to be competing with them for third, as I suspect.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't really I don't really have much more input. Do you have any thoughts on the matchup, Mark?
Yeah, I think that like a lot of teams that don't have the star power in them are going to take more time to develop and grow, become competitive from a strictly competitive perspective, which I factored in for a couple of my hot take predictions in episode 1, which was recorded with amazing quality. But yeah, so I think that a lot of times like those kinds of results don't surprise me, where things might be a little bit close, and then whenever the star power starts getting tired for a team that hasn't yet built all of that chemistry yet, they could start having some struggles. Whereas later in the season, I think a lot of those problems are going to be a lot less severe.
Yeah, I think even on green we've been having them, because I know that the combination of our Akron Canton versus the Macedonia people, we aren't always on the same page, so we're turning it over handler sets or stuff like that.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed since I moved to North Carolina. I've been on some new leagues, and I guess I underestimated how different, like, there are different styles of offense that are run and different styles of just defense and general communication, and it can be an adjustment. It's a little bit of a challenge, so I'm not surprised by that problem.
Not to completely derail this, but what are some of the main differences you notice between like how like Scoop / Cacti runs their offense and how the team you're playing now does? What are some
good question.
Different ways of doing it?
For me, the biggest thing is the way that we're running a vertical stack. I'm on more of another beginner growing team because I moved down there too late to try out for any of the traditional teams. But I love the team I'm on, so I don't want to sound like I settled for them or anything. But it's just the only team I could get on. So
sounds like you settled for them.
yeah. But so in Northeast Ohio, we have a very flowy style. I think Chris Almond has been a huge influence on a lot of the talent in the region, and his style is very flowy. So he's taught a very dynamic, very patient, like very active, like reading the defense, reading the field style. That's translated, because like Akron Pipeline had like the pipe stack, which is extraordinarily high intelligence. So you have to be able to read. There's no formula. In the leagues that I've been in, like for the summer league and the fall league and the club team, they're very much like, we're running this vert stack. We want to play this by the book. And if you mess up the cut, we don't want to throw it to you because it's not good. When I'm kind of running the style that I'm used to, where it's like, oh look, the defense cheated here, so I can make this cut. And it's just, it's just because we're just not on the same page. And then, so I think that's been the other thing. And then also their handler set in the vert stack is different. They call it bones. We used to position our off-handler like to the break side to make that straight cut, and they prefer they prefer the off-handler on the open side of the field, 45 back. So just a couple stylistic differences. And they like to have their cutters, like the off-handler, make the decision, and we in Ohio have the thrower make the decision. So just a couple stylistic things that have just been, I just never thought about different flavors of offense.
Makes sense to me.
Nice. That's really interesting. It's so easy to take things for granted.
Yeah, it's definitely easy to assume that if someone else knows what they're doing, that you're both going to try and go for the same thing too. Because there's a lot of situations, especially during our game, where you would have 2, 3 talented, experienced players like cutting to the same space or clearing out of the same space, or just generally not being on the same page. And it's definitely exactly what you're talking about, where it's just kind of gelling as a team and learning the tendencies of the other players, which I think will work to our advantage as the season goes on, and to some of these other teams' advantage as well.
Yeah, and you kind of see it in professional sports. I mean, LeBron James moves to a new team, and you're like, oh, they're going to win this year, and it usually takes them like a year to settle in with those players because there is a lot of chemistry that goes in. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, looking at the star talent on a team isn't always going to tell you the results that season.
Definitely.
Okay, so looking at the last matchup from last week, week 2, Black played Yellow, and it looks like it came down to a 15-13. So if you don't remember the teams, Black is the Mast, Rachel and Jonathan Mast with Elliot and Allison core team, and Yellow is the Dustin team. Dustin and Poba, etc. So I didn't watch this game either, but I did talk to Popa about it after the game. And from what I understand is that they got to an early lead because Rachel Mast was able to destroy them. And then towards the end of the game, Popa just played Rachel every single point. And they were able to make a slight comeback, but it was just too late to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So towards the end of the match, they just said, all right, you have to beat us without Rachel. And Popa said it still was a challenge. Like, she still got the disc, but she just wasn't destroying them.
Mm-hmm.
So let me click into them real quick just so you refresh the rosters.
So someone... From my perspective, I'm very inexperienced on mixed gender teams. Is that a fairly common strategy?
It's pretty uncommon to commit like a very talented male player to take away a specific female unless they are absolutely breaking the game.
Gotcha.
So I guess nothing but respect for forcing another team to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the Shella team, this Brady played at Independence before. So if you remember the Independence Ultimate scene,
so she's laying down shoulder checks.
He's really athletic, a lot of raw athleticism. He's fast, but not necessarily the best, ultimate IQ or throwing. But there's a lot of potential in Brady as well, from my experience. And Ross is one of the handlers from Independence. So they do have a talented team, and by putting Popa on Rachel, you're not necessarily saying that you don't have the players to match up with the rest of the lineup. So it was working. towards the end for them. But yeah, that was that.
And having never played with Rachel before, does she tend to win on athleticism or knowledge and skill, or a combination of the two?
Um, she as far as her athleticism compared to a guy, she's really athletic, but she's not going to beat you. Like it's not like you're playing against Chris Graber or something.
Compared to the matchup she typically gets.
What she really has is she has a lot of IQ, and she has a lot of chemistry typically with her handlers, especially when Jonathan Masters handling.
Gotcha.
And she has good she has good chemistry with Allison and Elliot. And she is very athletic as well. So she's just definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, one thing from having played against her, it's like your average male that isn't doing like conditioning is going to have a hard time keeping up with her because she makes very decisive cuts. Like when I'm like a lot of times like I ended up rotating or picking up and guarding her, and it's like I have to run hard to keep up with her, and especially this like before I got long COVID and lost all my muscle, like I had to run kind of hard to keep up, like just in general, because she definitely has guns, and it's really impressive.
Yeah. So I guess that concludes our recap. So let's go ahead and preview week 3, which is happening tomorrow. So we'll save ours for last, Scott.
Sure thing.
So let's start with black versus blue, the bruiser matchup. Black team, like we just discussed with Rachel, versus blue team with the Gary, Eli, and Tim Weeks, Christina team. Shout out Christina, doesn't like being mentioned on podcasts.
No, big shout out to Christina.
I personally think this is pretty close, especially if blue can do something, if they can find an innovative way to contend with Rachel, whether it's a zone, a bracket, or just putting a guy on her. But I think that it might come down to black winning 15-13.
Yeah. Yeah, the slugs look like they're pretty good, and black, honestly, based on their first 2 showings, hasn't been the undefeatable powerhouse I kind of thought they would be, so definitely possible.
And this could be the week that blue puts their chemistry together too.
Yeah, the reason that Ultimate is so biased in favor of the offense is because when you have a team that's all working together and is on the same page, you can do so many things that are just virtually impossible for a defense to take away. So once blue starts clicking, I don't think there's anybody that can stomp them guaranteed. So that's definitely gonna be exciting to see.
So are you picking this week for that to be the week, Mark?
Oh, I'm picking the week, dude. Especially seeing how quickly they came together. I think. Yeah, I think this is the upset week.
You think blue wins in overtime, 16-14?
Oh, I think they win 15-13. I think they pull it ahead.
Blue wins.
I think they get
ahead. All right. Well,
I think it might be. I think it's gonna be a momentum-y game. I think there's gonna be some momentum. There's gonna be some slides, some swings. But I think, that's what I'm predicting.
Okay, Mark with the blue winning 15-13, and then Scott and I going black 15-13. So yeah, it definitely will be a fun game to watch. All right, that's some good stuff there. So let's look at the Jackson Township matchup. Purple versus yellow. Sorry, that's the Jackson colors.
Purple's in the bottom right. If you click on their team name, you should be able to find their schedule.
So yellow looking again, Dustin Popa team, and purple being the Benji Eric team.
I think yellow's going to win. I think it'll be by a similar margin as our game was. Because one of the things that purple did really well in our game was that backhand force and the poaching, which I think works kind of well against a team like us, which is going to kind of run a fairly traditional offense. I think yellow, especially having Dustin and Popa, is going to be doing a lot of breakthrows, a lot of hammers, a lot of individual kind of one-off, unrepeatable plays that those kind of like tilting the odds in your favor type defensive strategies aren't going to be able to compensate for.
I think it'll be close. I think the woman matchups will be pretty even, so not necessarily an edge either way. I think it'll be interesting. I think purple could win very easily as well. But if I had to put a number on it, I would say yellow wins in overtime 16-14.
So, I'm going to be boring and go with you guys. I think yellow's going to have the edge because if purple goes backhand force for most of the game, I think yellow's going to have the edge because I think one of the players that yellow is going to run their offense through, Scott Popa, he's less comfortable breaking the mark and making breakthrows when there's a forehand force. I think with the backhand force, Scott's going to be a lot more comfortable making those breakthrows that he has to make to keep the offense on schedule. But I think if purple does decide to go with a flick force for this game, I think purple's going to edge it out. So I guess I'm going to kind of do a little bit of 50-50 playing both sides on that. But I think it's going to come down to how that force works out and how Scott Pope is able to break that mark and keep that offense on schedule.
Very good. He is a pivotal player for yellow, so this will be another matchup to keep your eye on. And the last matchup will be green versus red. And I would like to preface this. So if you look at our roster again, Mark, with Peterson, Ryan, Tia, Andy, Leglong, Mustafa, Higgy, Scott, and myself. Katie did drop for the season, and her replacement was Madeline Connolly.
Oh, okay, yeah, great.
Yeah.
So we traded basically a cutter for a handler. And it's I'm sad to see Katie go, but just playing with Connolly's sisters is always fun.
It is from experience, I can tell you.
So yeah, this will be our squad going in against red. The red being the power team. So I'll let you start, Scott. What do you think your prediction is?
I think that red thinks it's going to be a free dub. I think that one of the things I've noticed as of late is that Kevin gets really excited to stunt on people he knows in Frisbee. I think Gabe's kind of does that too. I think they're both going to be, because Kevin asked me to pick up are you going to match up me on Wednesday? I was like, I don't know, man, we'll see.
We will see.
My guess is that Matt Peterson is going to want to cover Kevin most of the time, especially if he's cutting.
Yeah, matchups will be interesting here.
I do think that hubris on their part could bite them in the butt, and frankly, they have enough talent on their team that we're going to need something like that if we're going to pull out the victory. On the other hand, our team has been really, really trying our hardest to just throw the game in the second half for the last 2 weeks.
True.
Not initiating cuts, not initiating movement through the handler set, making low percentage throws, giving up easy Ds. I think that if we could literally just tighten things down like 10% in that regard, start initiating through handler movement, find open cuts, not have three people cut into the same place, that we could really give them a run for it. But
I think
we have to do that first.
Those are good points. I think our key to keep it competitive is if we can swing the disc and if we can reset the disc. Because a lot of our turnovers are because we keep forcing the open side rather than just being able to swing the disc. Or even just reset it.
As I've been very slightly increasing my ultimate knowledge, I've started to notice that the handler movement is really what separates some of these more experienced teams from the beginner, this is what a vert stack is type teams. And if we can get into a place where we're looking upfield for 3 seconds, resetting, and then clearing out, that'll go a long way towards really changing the nature of our offense.
My prediction, I'm going to predict Red wins 15-12, but I'm going to play with a heart that believes it can win and that it will win.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we do win, because we have the capability to do it. It might take us being efficient and them not being efficient.
Yeah.
But it's definitely within the realm of possibilities. But it's not my prediction.
Yeah, especially with the addition of Madeline to our team. I don't know. My assumption is that we're always going to have at least a slight edge if we go to 2 female lineups. So I don't know if that's something we can rely as heavily on in this game as we did in the last game, but that's definitely something that'll work in our favor if we need it to.
Yeah, I think Tia versus Ashley will be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, all right. I think people don't realize what an athletic freak Tia is for sure.
All right, Mark.
So I'm gonna get a little bit of a hot take here, right? Because tragically, and I'm heartbroken to have moved. I miss everybody dearly. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be on the field and see all the teams, so I'm doing a lot of speculation here. But from what I was looking at for Team Green, I'm seeing a lot of players that are very emotionally driven, which is a really good thing in a lot of ways. But I think a lot of the things you guys have been pointing out might be symptoms of whenever a play doesn't go your way emotionally, it's easy for some players to get more frustrated than others and start trying to force things. So I think Green's path to victory in this game is to be able to have somebody there to be able to be just kind of that voice in the back of their head being like, hey guys, let's keep it together. Let's keep, just do your role, keep your head down. Let's just win this point. Don't worry about the game. And I think if you guys have that, you're going to win. But in the absence of that, I think Red has it. Because it's the reason I really notice those things is because that's kind of what my personal strength is on a team. I'm very much like the mental side of it. And I'm like, I'm pretty quick to recognize when a player's like that. And I'm always like, patting their back, as you guys said in the podcast before Macedonia League. Like, I'm that guy that's going to go in there and be like, hey, I see your mental's dropping. Let's keep this up. Just don't try to force stuff. So I think for Green's path to victory on that one, I think if there's somebody there to make sure nobody's getting frustrated, I think you guys have the potential to win. But I think with Kevin and Gabe both being there, Gabe being the most obnoxious and fun person to play against, Gabe is very good at getting under your skin when he plays, just because of the way that he is. And Kevin's very level-headed as far as keeping his team focused and on track. I think it's going to be a difficult matchup from that aspect.
We're going to have to call Gabe on all his travels.
Yeah, we're going to call every single travel on him. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever voiced this disagreement with you, Mark. I think he plays way too high of way too much weight on the mental state of the game and how that affects the final result. I think that oftentimes that mental state is just a result of like just getting beat. Like you're angry because you're getting beat. You're not getting beat because you're angry.
Oh, they're two sides of the same coin. I don't disagree with that. And like for example, for the last Macedonia Winter League, TJ definitely built his team about on the mental side, but we didn't have the playmakers, and I just wasn't in physical enough shape to draft to play like my value. So that was definitely a factor. But in my opinion, I think it's a big factor
Sure.
mentally, like where they need to be is a huge factor.
Kind of cut
I'm
out
also
there for a
biased.
couple seconds.
Sorry, yeah, my cat was chewing on my cable, and I probably got off my push to talk button when I was getting her way. But yeah,
Right.
so I think it's a big factor when it comes to that. It's not the only factor though. I think just for your team specifically, for Green Team, I see a ton of talent on the team, but I also see players that tend to be a little bit more hot and cold when it comes to those emotional rides. Because some players are like that. I'm a little bit like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But like some players are just like dogs, man. When they're locked in, they're locked in. And some players are a little bit more consistent. So
Sure.
that's all.
Makes sense.
All right. So what's your number? What's your point? Your final score prediction, Mark?
All right. So I think Gabe shows up and plays the mental game, and I think that Red pulls it out 15-10. I think there's going to be. I think it's going to start the first half. The first 5, 6, 7 points are going to be pretty even, and then I think Red's going to get on a rampage, and once it rains, it's going to start pouring. So hot takes only from here.
Well, hopefully next week, if you're on the podcast, we'll be able to prove you wrong. Maybe 15-11, maybe 15-12 even. So
Oh, absolutely put me in my place, man.
I'll put you in your place. I'll scroll in here, losing 12-15. What's up, Mark?
I want nothing more.
All right. Off topic, last question. Mark, you have 3 months to draft an Ultimate Frisbee team from any person living right now in the world. Who is your first round pick? You can draft based off of pure athleticism, and you have 3 months to teach them Ultimate Frisbee.
Oh boy, so my first pick, definitely John Mast. I think John Mast is one of those players, if I had 3 months in a vacuum with him, he makes the players around him better.
So you're not even going to consider someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo or LeBron James or like a world-class athlete. You're just going straight to John Mast for the...
Oh yeah,
Wow.
John Mast is my boy. John Mast is my boy, I'm in there.
If I could take anyone in the world, I would probably be considering someone like Tyreek Hill or someone who's just a world-class sprinter who has good game sense, you know?
You think?
And-
Because I'm worried about someone with that much muscle mass in only 3 months. Because they're just not gonna have the gas tank to play let's just assume club game. Play a 90-minute club game, even if they're subbing out and only playing
What
every
if you take a world-class soccer player?
That's where my head was going, was to Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, someone like that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess taking a handler,
Yeah, you could pick
but then
2
then
or
I
3
would
of the
pick, like-
elite AUDL handlers, and then just like elite soccer players after that.
Yeah. Mark, would Chris Graber make your all-world team?
Oh yeah, Chris Graver makes the team, baby. Because my mentality on this, and I think to a fault maybe, but I think the disc travels faster than any player ever can. So chemistry, if you have that chemistry with the athleticism to back it up, you don't have to be a 10 out of 10. You can be a 7 out of 10 athlete. If you have that chemistry with everybody around you, it's really hard to stop you.
What round would you draft prime LeBron James?
Oh, prime. I don't know. I don't know how LeBron James would be. Like, if he's still playing basketball, like he's not going to put his body on the line for the team because he doesn't want to mess up his contracts. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to play that.
This hypothetical situation is more important than NBA.
Hot take.
Okay,
I would take 18-year-old LeBron James over prime LeBron James for Ultimate, because prime LeBron James weighed in at 280.
that is a very
Was he
valid point.
taller?
He was 6'8". He was 6'8" both times, but he ended at 220 or 230, and he was like 280 when he was like prime LeBron on the Heat, Game 6, all that kind of thing.
What about prime Randy Moss?
Randy Moss, now that's a dude. I don't know why, but I would be less worried about his endurance than Tyreek Hill's. That's just like the vibe I get.
I think NFL players are in good enough physical condition to play this game. I don't think that's a concern. At least that's my take on it.
I think they would be relative to me or you, but if
Especially
we're
if there's
choosing among
O-lines
anyone
and
from the
D-lines,
world.
you know?
Well, I thought we were just picking 7 right now, though.
I don't know.
Seven players to score on any team in the world.
True. If it's just 7, you'd pick 2 world-class handlers and then 7 world-class athletes and then have 3 months to give them chemistry.
Yeah, I'd probably go with like 2 world-class handlers, 2 like really elite, I don't know, maybe like power forwards, so a little bit smaller, like 6'5", 6'6" instead of 6'8" or 6'10". And then after that, yeah, probably soccer players for the remaining 3.
Interesting. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for today. I guess we'll see how the games play out and then have a recap for next week. Thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate it.